In Cuba, authorities denounced a terrorist attack with Molotov cocktails against its embassy in Washington. In Ecuador, the electoral campaign for the presidential election runoff started. And in France, President Emmanuel Macron stated that his country would withdraw its ambassador and troops from Niger following weeks of ongoing protests demanding their removal. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Cuba denounces a terrorist attack against its embassy in Washington. Last Sunday night, the Cuban embassy in the United States was attacked with Molotov cocktails by an individual, denounced the authorities of the Caribbean country. According to the Cuban media, there were no damages to the diplomatic personnel. In April 2020, the diplomatic headquarters were attacked by an individual who fired a high-caliber rifle at the facade. On that occasion, the shooting left deep marks on the Doric columns of the entrance, broke a street lamp, and several glass panels and moldings of the front of the building. Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez condemned in a message on the X account the terrorist attack perpetrated by an individual against the embassy in the United States. The official wrote, in the afternoon hours of today, September 24th, the Cuban embassy in the U.S. was the target of a terrorist attack perpetrated by an individual through 2 Molotov cocktails. There was no damage to personnel. This is the second violent attack against the diplomatic mission of Cuba. In a special interview with our correspondent Isa Garcia, the president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, addressed 2 fundamental issues that are affecting the world today: the unequal international economic order and, on the other hand, the global climate crisis.
We came not only to speak on behalf of Cuba, but on behalf of the group of the 77, which means speaking on behalf of the South countries. I believe there was a consensus in determining that the 2 fundamental issues today. What are they? Well, at the world level, the unjust, anti-democratic, unequal international economic order that must be changed and that causes the gaps between the developed and the undeveloped. On the other hand, the climate crisis, which is already an emergency, and all the problems that comes with it. These are 2 transversal axes. Now, there is a whole group of situations in the world, such as crises, conflicts, wars, unilateral coercive measures imposed by some countries, the hegemonic thinking of some powers. The sanctions and everything have increased this situation, for instance, the pandemic.
In this interview, the Cuban president also spoke of the importance of taking action in the face of the climate crisis, specifically with concrete measures aimed at addressing the cause of the problem, guaranteeing funds for those who need it most.
At the summit, Cuba and the group of the 77 gave continuity to the debate, and therefore they have come to denounce, and I think that this denunciation has had receptivity. Actions has been proposed, and something that also always worries me is how these actions are going to be carried out. In fact, many of these promises have been regarding change. Yes, financing and development. Nothing had happened with $1,000 million pledged for every year by the rich country. And also, how is this aid distributed? Which is not always directed to those who need it the most, something that is on my mind when I participate in summits. Something that Chavez said, presidents go from summit to summit, and people go from Aves to Aves.
Members of social movements in the United States held an act of solidarity against Washington's blockade against Cuba and Venezuela. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel, together with Venezuela's Foreign Minister Ivan Gil, intervened in this act of fraternity with the peoples hit by the sanctions imposed by the West. The Cuban president said that both countries will win by virtue of the heroism of their peoples and the support of solidarity movements in the U.S. and the world. In Venezuela, the Bolivarian National Armed Forces completed Operation Autana 2023 with the eviction of over 14,000 illegal miners from the Yapacana National Park in the Amazonas state. The information was released by the Strategic Operational Commander of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces, General-in-Chief Domingo Hernandez Lares, who detailed that over 25,000 men and women of the army were deployed on Tepuy, Yapacana, and its slopes to complete the task of removing the illegal miners. The high official specified that the uniformed men and women remain in charge of safeguarding and protecting environmental rights. Finally, Hernandez addressed President Nicolas Maduro, informing that Yapacana National Park was declared territory free of illegal mining.
My Commander-in-Chief, on behalf of the Venezuelan people and vested by its created power, invoking Almighty God, the historic example of our liberator Simón Bolívar, the heroism and sacrifice of our aboriginal forebears, and of the precursors and forgers of the sovereign motherland, we hereby declare the Yapacana National Park as a territory free from illegal mining activities. My Commander-in-Chief, from the top of the Yapacana Hills, I report to you that the National Bolivarian Force, in a perfect civic military police union, the mission has been accomplished. To integrate is to conquer. We shall overcome.
And we stay in Venezuela, where President Nicolas Maduro proposed to his Guyanese counterpart Mohamed Irfan Ali to hold a meeting with the Caribbean community, CARICOM, in order to resume dialogue to resolve the territorial dispute over Guyana Essequiba. The Venezuelan president asked Irfan Ali to cease his irresponsibility, manipulation, double standards, hypocrisy, and false victimization, while warning him that in his eagerness to please transnational interests, he is turning Guyana into a branch of ExxonMobil. President Maduro asked his Guyanese counterpart not to allow the United States Southern Command to turn his country into a military base against Venezuela and urged him to adhere to the 1966 Geneva Agreement to solve the territorial controversy over eastern Guyana. Maduro warned that the conduct of the government of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana violates international legality and jeopardizes peace in the region. And on Sunday, the Venezuelan National Assembly also rejected the statements made by Guyana's President Irfan Ali regarding the dispute over the Essequibo territory. In its declaration, the Assembly announced that on September 21st, they approved a motion for a referendum on the Essequibo territory, underscoring that it is a territory that by right and history belongs to the Republic of Venezuela, which has over 200 years of history. Venezuela's National Assembly referred to the statements made by the President of Guyana in rejection of the said referendum as brazen, false, and hypocritical, and labeled its administration as a franchise of the U.S. oil transnational company ExxonMobil, which intends to appropriate oil reserves in the disputed territory, jeopardizing peace in the region. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. Argentinian Vice President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, speaking at a book relaunch at the auditorium of the Education and Work Metropolitan University, discussed the current economic situation of the country. The talk, titled Of Caste Inheritance Collapses and the Future, was also the stage for the relaunch of a book entitled After the Collapse, Conversations between Torcuato Di Tella and Néstor Kirchner. Cristina Fernández de Kirchner recalled important moments in the country's recent history, mostly the implosion of the neoliberal model in Argentina, which gave way to the rise of former President Néstor Kirchner. Cristina Fernández, a former Argentinian president herself, recalled that progressive administrations first handed over the country to Mauricio Macri with low indebtedness, and then in 2019 inherited a debt from the International Monetary Fund.
As Dujovne said, by the end of our administration, there was very low indebtedness. But then in 2019, we inherited the reinstatement of the neoliberal model, which happened from 2016 till 2019, with the monetary fund. And the truth is that when a country has a debt of the magnitude of the one they contracted in such a short time and with such short maturities, then the fund comes in with its plans that are inflationary by nature because they installed devaluation. It makes things very difficult. I want to acknowledge one very important thing to the Minister of Economy, which is having said the truth about the International Monetary Fund to the people.
This Sunday in Ecuador, the electoral campaign for the presidential election runoff to be held on October 15th got underway. According to the National Electoral Council schedule, candidates will have, as of this Sunday until October 12th, to use the funds allotted for electoral promotion. The candidates will be touring the country to give interviews to the media and to meet with their supporters. The National Electoral Council has approved the use of $989,579 for presidential candidates to promote their agendas by hosting events and rallies. In Russia, the newly associated territories of Donetsk, Lugansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhzhia completed the selection of their new authorities. In the Kherson region, Vladimir Saldo was elected by the Legislative Assembly, who has been acting head of these territories since October 2022. In the Donetsk region, Denis Pushilin was elected, and in Lugansk, Leonid Pasachnik was appointed, both of whom will serve as acting regional governors appointed by their respective people's councils. For Zaporizhzhia territory, Evgeny Balitsky was elected governor after serving as interim head of the region. In Germany, police arrested a group of political activists blocking a Berlin avenue where an important marathon was to take place. Local media reported that a group of activists of the Last Generation movement tried to sit down on June 17th Avenue, some 300 meters from the starting line, while others threw orange paint on the asphalt. The police quickly removed the activists, who received a fine of €2,000 for violating the ban on demonstrating along the marathon route. Protesters regretted disrupting the competition for the runners, but claimed that they had to do so because of the emergency situation and existential danger of the climate crisis. In Sweden, more than 100 people gathered in Stockholm to protest the government's decision to join NATO, calling for an end to war and rejecting alliance membership. Protesters expressed their opposition to the government's abandonment of Sweden's long-standing neutrality. Protesters say NATO is not a defense alliance, but rather a nuclear-armed alliance serving the interests of the United States and waging wars abroad. They say joining NATO could lead to nuclear weapons deployed on Swedish soil, increasing the risk of nuclear attack, adding that Sweden's defense should focus on protecting its own territory, not fighting overseas wars under NATO command. The Swedish NATO accession issue has been under discussion for nearly a year within the military alliance. Only the Turkish and Hungarian parliaments are yet to approve its memberships.
The main purpose is that we want to stop the Swedish application to the NATO alliance, because we don't want to be a part of that. We don't want to be a part of a war criminal alliance that is terrorizing all around the world and starting war in different innocent countries.
We had a reputation 20, 30 years ago to be this neutral country. We could mediate between different nations in war. But now that's all gone. We've all just decided to go with the United States side. And that's why we meet here. It's because we share these sentiments and we share this horror of what the future is going to be like.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, sub-stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. French President Emmanuel Macron stated on Sunday that his country would withdraw its ambassador and troops from Niger in the wake of the July coup that put an end to the government of Mohamed Bazoum. Macron made the statement in a televised interview. The new military rulers and massive popular demonstrations had been demanding the exit of the French ambassador and troops for weeks, after French authorities refused to recognize the coup. In this way, the French president stated that military cooperation was over and French troops would withdraw in the months and weeks to come, with a full pullout by the end of the year. So far, France has maintained some 1,500 troops at its base in Niger. In Palestine, demonstrations continue near the Gaza Strip to demand an end to the Israeli blockade and an end to the siege imposed on the territory. 2 demonstrators were wounded with live ammunition, while others suffered tear gas inhalation when the Israeli occupation forces attacked along the eastern border of the Gaza Strip. Israel, for its part, once again stormed the demonstrations of the Palestinian people in order to silence their voices. Zionist soldiers fired live ammunition and tear gas at dozens of youth whose condition was described as stable before demonstrations reached their 8th consecutive day in the eastern Gaza Strip after 17 years of blockade. The people of the Gaza continue to endure deplorable living conditions and restricted access to basic necessities, a situation aggravated by regular Israeli attacks. Iranian armed forces have thwarted a terrorist attack which would have targeted with explosive 30 locations in the capital Tehran. Iranian intelligence has apprehended 28 Daesh extremists involved in the plot. Iranian army officials said they raided several terrorist barracks on a series of simultaneous operations and seized various explosive devices, bomb precursors, time bomb electronic devices, intelligent communication devices, military uniforms, and suicide vests, all of which has been regarded as evidence of possible aid from abroad. In the United States, the National Hurricane Center reports that Storm Ophelia made landfall on the North Carolina coast, where it became a tropical depression. Several states on the East Coast experienced heavy rains and storm surges, which caused the suspension of activities due to power outages caused by hurricane force winds. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration reported that this year's Atlantic hurricane season is expected to be above average, with anywhere between 14 and 21 tropical storms, and of which some 6 to 11 will become hurricanes. Thirteen municipalities in Brazil remain in emergency due to the extreme drought affecting this nation. Temperatures have exceeded 41 degrees Celsius in some cities. The National Institute of Investigations of the Amazon reported that the drought is due to 2 simultaneous climatic phenomena, which are the phenomenon of El Niño and the warming of the tropical North Atlantic. In addition to the municipalities in emergency, another 16 are under alert due to multiple effects. The drop in the level of waterways has caused water supply problems in some localities, while the city of Sao Paulo reached record temperatures during the last 48 hours. Like this, we have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find this and many other news on our website, TeleSURenglish.net, and you can also join us on our social medias on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.